Hi, everybody. My name is Mark Clendenin. I am with the state of Ohio, and I'm here with Junior Achievement, working on the JA personal finance section on investing. Really looking forward to talk about this section. I am a former financial advisor, so I might have a few things to say about this, but we have a limited amount of time, so I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. There were some things I won't have in there, but I encourage you to read and study on the topic as you go forward. So with that being said, let's get started on this, okay? Investing. As I said, I love the topic. I think it's an important one for you, for sure. Let's start by going through a little bit of a warm-up exercise today so we know where we're going. So let's talk about interest, the basic part of investment, right? What is it? Which one of these examples would be interest? Would interest be the percentage that we earn on our savings account? Yeah. A percentage charged by a student loan company to borrow money to go to school. Well, that's interest for them. They're charging us, but they're getting interest. A percentage you pay on a credit card company debt when you over on that credit card. So you didn't pay it off at the end of the month, so you went in the next month, they charge you interest. Is that interest? Absolutely. So the answer on this one is D. It's all of the above. Interest is fees you pay plus fees that they pay to you. Good answers, by the way. All right. So we'll talk about interest and, well, exactly where we get to. But let's talk a little bit about, before I go there, about one of the great wonders of the world, I think, which is compound interest. So interest is something straight, and I gave you X number of dollars, and I gave you interest for it. But compound interest means that the interest you're getting is earning interest on the money you're getting, so it keeps compounding. So if you had $1 and you got 10 cents in interest, now that $1.10 earns interest, and it keeps about growing and growing and growing. Really, your money making money for you, and that's why we talk about the fact that starting young and saving on a steady basis really maximizes or really makes great your earnings potential. And that's why I always share with people, especially young folks, that the earlier you start saving and investing, even a little bit, the better off you are. And the example I will give you is very simply, if you make a little bit of money this year at a job working at the McDonald's, and you saved 15% of that money, well, you never knew what you had because you always put that 15% away in an account that you never saw. And maybe next year you're making twice as much money. Well, you're still putting 15% of it away. So you got a really big jump in pay, but you didn't really notice what was missing. And if you continue that throughout your life, the fact that you are starting early and using time as your growth factor and compound interest, you'll have a tremendous amount of money saved up by the time you graduate college and go a little further in life and get ready to buy a house, or certainly by the time you retire, you'll have plenty of money to be able to retire in a very healthy fashion. So I really do believe that using compound interest in your favor is something that you really have to do. Interest, it's payment for the use of money, right? Whether you're paying it to somebody else for using their money or they're paying it to you for them using your money, at the end of the day, interest is just paying somebody for the use of their money. And the next slide, which is compound interest, we really just talked about, and it's interest earning interest. So it not only are you earning interest, but the interest that you earned is earning interest, which makes that money grow much faster over a period of time. If you ever wanted to know, by the way, what an investment is earning for you, there's a rule called the rule of 72s, and I don't know if I can slide this in for you or not. Maybe I can. Rule of 72 is very basic here. Says basically you take the number 72 and you divide that number by the interest that you're going to be earning on your investment. So years, so if you're earning 5% or 6% or 7%, if you take that 5, 6, or 7% divided by that 72, that'll tell you the number of years it will take for that money to double. Fun thing to do if you're trying to figure out how long it's going to take you to double your money and where you want to be. Just a fun fact for you. All right, investing in risk. We're not going to play this slide or this video, but I want you to know that not all the time do you want to avoid risk. We talked in insurance a while back about, avoiding risk sometimes, but investments and risk, you're not always wanting to avoid. Sometimes you're going to want to make a little bit more risk in your investment than you're maybe comfortable with, right? There is a bit of a risk versus reward. And there's something we call a kind of a balanced portfolio, right? And it's something that you probably don't need to know more than, we balance out the investments. So, you try to figure out where over time you want to be in it, what interest rate you're looking for, and how much risk you want to take. And so if you invested all of your money in bonds, you're going to be on the low end of the interest scale. But if you invested all of your money in stocks, you'd be on the high end of the interest scale. But the problem is you're going to be high end of the risk scale. So what we do is we take a little bit of the bonds and a little bit of federal monies and some investments in stocks and maybe some real estate. And we kind of get the highs and the lows and we blend them out to give you a balanced portfolio that says, well, you're going to earn a little more risk over time. So when one drops, the other won't go up. But if something really dropped off significantly, you wouldn't have a significant amount of loss in any one period. So everything would lose. You would only lose in one category. So sometimes there is a good reason to take on a little bit of risk. So how else can my money grow, huh? Well, you always have savings, right? So savings is safe. You can put it into a bank and earn, 1% or 1.5% interest. But if the inflation rate is 3%, you're really losing money every year. You're losing 2% interest. So while it's safe, it may not be getting you where you want to get to over a period of years. And then there's business borrowing or investments, right? The investment piece is really loaning money to either governments or organizations or companies, right? When you buy stock in a company, you're buying shares of that company. You're buying ownership in that company. When you buy bonds, bonds are really nothing more than loaning money to a organization, a government, or a company, and you're loaning them money, and they're going to pay you interest. Well, based upon what the chances you're going to get paid or not get paid back is going to drive the interest rate of that up or down. We invest for the future. We invest for a lot of different things in the future, but it's a long term. When we talk about savings, we usually talk about short term. I'm saving for in case I lose my job, or I'm saving for in case my car breaks down. I'm saving for a new boat, right? Those are short-term goals. Investments are more long-term, more wealth goals, retirement, what it's going to cost in the future for education, basically building wealth, right? So long-term goals versus short-term goals, investments versus savings. So we'll do a little strengthen activity here, kind of risk versus reward. It's a good activity. When you look at this triangle here, or this pyramid, you can see that level 1 is no risk, but little return. Level 2 is low risk, but some returns. Level 3 is moderate risk, but potentially higher rates of return over a long period of time. And then level 4 is high risk, but potentially high reward. So if I were looking through there, I would say level 4 would be growth stocks, very new companies in very new areas where, it's a cutting edge and they're trying to get the market. That's a high risk, potentially high reward, but they're certainly high risk. Level 1, I would say, either a savings account, a money market account, investment in the U.S. government bonds, and then in between, are different choices. But what do you notice consistent between all of those is that the risk and the return always seems to travel, or does travel, the same direction. So low risk, low return; high risk, high return. You don't want to be on either end of the spectrum, because if you're high risk, high return, you have a really high chance of losing everything and then having to try and earn it back again. If you're on the very, very low end of the spectrum, what you end up with is a return on investment that is less than inflation, and you're losing money every day on that one. That's more of a slow, the high side is more of a, you cut your arm off. The low one is more like you've cut your finger and it's bleeding slowly for the rest of your life, right? So the risk return trade-off, it's it is a trade-off. We often talk about blended portfolios, right? A blended portfolio of investments means you've got a little bit of everything sitting in that basket. If you don't want all your eggs in the same basket, and you don't want all the same kind of things in the basket. So, a good spread of risk return is trying to get some high interest, some lower interest, a little safer. So you go up and down, top to bottom, and then left to right. So I could go savings, money markets, blue chip stocks, which are companies that kind of pay dividend stocks, and then I could go growth stocks. And then within each one of those, I could pick different companies or different organizations to spread it that way. So no matter where that loss happens, I haven't got a significant loss in any one particular place. And that all boils into that risk return trade-off. I think that's an important concept that you should learn really early, because it'll save you a lot of pain later on. There's a section here that's about investment advisor. And here's what I think, as a former investment advisor, this is what I think you should know. An investment advisor should invest and advise based upon their client. They should know who their client is, what their risk tolerance is, how much they can absorb, not financially, but even mentally, physically, how much they can absorb before they get upset. What their needs are, what their wants are for the future, what their long-term horizon is, how long of a time do they have to earn this money, and from that you'll be able to determine where that interest rate needs to be and how those investments need to spread out to make sure it's a balanced portfolio or a balanced investment scheme, if you will. So we'll skip through this piece a little bit here, since we're going to run out of a little bit of time, and we'll talk a little bit about the right amount of risk, right? So here's our little sprint here. Investment true or false. That's an easy sprint for us. By the way, the going backward. Let me back up just for a second, because I think I might have missed this one piece. Well, I said it, but I want to reiterate it. We talk about the right amount of risk back before the sprint. And that's what I was talking about earlier. The right amount of risk is individually determined. It's how much you feel you can absorb, where your comfort level is, what your needs are, what your long-term horizons are. It takes all of that into consideration, and that determines the right amount of risk for you. And frankly, everybody's different. So just because somebody else has a one investment grouping or portfolio doesn't mean you should. You should get one that actually meets your needs and takes care of you. All right, here we go. So investment true or false. We're going to show a couple things here. Let's see how we do on these things. Hopefully I do well. I should know this stuff, right? You don't need a ton of money to start investing. Well, we know that, but we talked about that because we said a little bit of money over time using compound interest can really have a big effect on me in the future. So this is definitely a true, we don't need a lot of money to invest in. We just need to do it consistently over time. All right, a little cool down here. So you got a lot of stuff thrown at you today. There's a lot of terms that maybe you got, but let's encapsulate this right in one place. Investing is a way to grow money over time. Investing is long-term wealth building. Savings is short-term need preparation. Compound interest increases the amount of money over time. Compound interest is your friend, and your friend's friend is time. So compound interest and time really make you wealthy individuals if you invest on a consistent basis early in your life and don't stop. Different investment options carry different levels of risk and reward. We talked about that, right? Level of risk and reward travel together. So should you have no risk? No. Should you have high risk? Maybe, but no. It should balance where you feel comfortable and how much can you afford to lose sometimes, right? And I think that's an important question. How would you feel if you lost this money? What would it do to you if you lost this money? Some of those questions have to be answered so that you can identify where your proper level of risk is and reward is to get you through the future. Threw a lot of stuff at you today. I hope you caught some of it. They were some fast pitches, but I think you caught the curveball. So I think we'll keep you behind the plate. So thanks for joining. Hope you had a great time here, and read up on it, get good at it, and I'm sure you'll do fantastic going forward. Have a great time.